welcome. This is the Reverend Dr. Gilberto Rosado, welcoming you to another comment today. Today we'll be discussing an article that recently came out in the pilotonline.com article today. And we're going to look into this article, this situation with E.W. Jackson, a preacher who's running for Virginia lieutenant governor, I believe. Yes, he's the Republican candidate for lieutenant governor for the state of Virginia. And this article on pilotonline.com, written by Bill Sizemore of the Virginian Pilot. Okay, and that's October 23rd, 2013. I just came aware of it, of the article, so I'm going to do an analysis of the situation. The points that I'm going to talk about is the problem or the issue of terms that are being used, they're being thrown about, and they're not really, in terms of the Christian perspective, not being fully explained or understood correctly. And then you have, we're subject to the secular definition of terms like religion. And I think this has to be explained in both a theological sense and then a socio-political perspective. And that's what I'm going to do today briefly. And we'll go into this article a little bit so we can appreciate the issues that are involved here. Excuse me, just I went blank there. Sorry. And let me set that slide up here so that we can have it a full screen. Just give me a second to add in that shot. And then we have, it's called Jewish Crowd Presses E.W. Jackson for E.W. Jackson on false religion. On false religion. And that is what we're going to talk about. What false religion, what is being referred to or regarded as false religion. I mean, what is meant by false religion? And I think this is the problem that E.W. Jackson is falling into, because obviously he is not classifying or defining well what religion is. Okay. Now, and you see how nonsensical these things are when you realize what religion means. Religion comes from two words, and it's re, which means again, to repeat or to try again, redo, like redo, and then it's legion. If we can look here, and then you see that liger, in the Latin, liga, which is in the Latin, and even if you're Spanish origin, you will recognize that as being to tie, ligar, right? And that is to tie onto. Okay, so the religion means to retie. And the thing is that the concept of religion is man reattaching ourselves. See, it's important that we understand understand what the word means. We are attaching ourselves to God. That is what religion is. Okay, so that's the meaning of religion. Now the problem comes in to the fact or to the point of who is doing the retying, or who is doing the work. And this is important because if you're a theologian and or just a Christian who knows their theology, you listen to the word. Who is doing the work of reattachment? You see. So this is the issue with religion. I'm going to explain more about that, and it makes the term here that's used false religion, and that he used it he used it the wrong way, and that's why he's having issues right now. Because of he's saying something twice, really. It's characterized what is already inherent in the term religion. You don't need to say false religion. Let's see what he said in this article. He says, what the article quotes him as saying, challenged by a Jewish audience to defend his assertion that non-Christians are followers of false religion. See, the issue is false religion is saying it twice. Religion inherently is false, all of it. Even Christians who are in a Christian church, right, can be in falsehood, can be mistaken in how they are, or in trying to retie themselves to God. They're trying to retie themselves to God. And this is where the religion factor comes into place, and what makes it false in its concept, because there is nothing that man can do to reattach himself to God. It is not a work of man, and the Bible says that clearly. This is a totally a work of God. God did the work, and through his son Christ Jesus, who performed the act of redemption on the cross of Calvary, this was God's doing. It's not man's doing. So therefore, this is not an issue of religion in terms of what the preacher here, Jackson, should be focusing on. It's not an issue of religion, because if he's in a religion, then he has an issue, and now he has more issues because of that. But religion in general is not good, because it is our own presumptuous attempt at reattaching ourselves to God. And the Bible says and teaches that it cannot be done by man. Man cannot reattach himself to God. It can only be done by God. And it's paramount. It's almost the same as an infant being born, of a baby who has cut himself off. Obviously, he can't do that by himself, but he's detached from the umbilical cord. He cannot reattach that. It cannot be done by him. Once it's cut, severed, it is severed. And in this sense, it is the miracle of God, salvation, because God reattaches man. God reconnects to man. Man cannot do it himself, and God does that. And so, therefore, all religion, by definition, religia, is false, because it cannot do what it claims. It cannot reattach a person to God. You can try all you want. You can say all you want that you're now in a church, and now you're in this religion, and now you have God, or now you serve a God, or you have gods, or whatever it is. But what man attempts to do in relation to the Godhead cannot be effective. It can only be by an act of God, the working of God, and that is the only way it can happen. And by definition, then that is not religion. When we are uniquely brought to God through God, that God has brought us to Him, this is not religion. This is not the stuff of religion. So this is it's unfortunate that the even the Christian church is engaged in this religious terminology, which is all false. To begin with, this should not be used. Christians should not be using the term religion, because this is again the trappings of the secularists. And sorry about my the secularists, and in the Christian term and Christian perspective, the enemy. Okay, wants to change have the terms and use terms and define them in such a way so that now Christians are pulled out and fooled to use these same terms in referring to their own faith. You see, and then you're making I would say idiotic statements that reflect a lack of understanding of what these issues are, and then the secular world will dice you up as they are doing now with this candidate. It says that he made this in a statement in a sermon in Northern Virginia last month, that people who don't follow Jesus Christ are engaged in some sort of false religion. Okay? So this is again the false religion aspect. It's religion. They do not follow Jesus Christ. They're in religion. Period. That's what should have been said. These are religious people, and even atheists are religious. Therefore, they deny the existence of God, but they are doing the same as religious people do, which is trying to attach themselves to an ideal. And the ideal then becomes their God. That becomes a God. And therefore, why the atheistic and humanistic perspectives of people in those perspectives, or having them, appear to be religious zealots, is because it is a religion. Simply, this is your eyes do not fool you. They do not deceive you. They tell you exactly what is. They appear to be religious zealots because that's indeed what they are. Because anyone who is again trying to attach themselves to an ideal, who pursue an ideal to the utmost, is religious. That is a religious zeal, and that is what makes it false inherently. Inherently. So this is the issue here. The Jews took offense to that, apparently, to what he said, of course, because again, they are looking at themselves as being religious. Everybody's looking at themselves as having a religion that they are attempting to reattach to God. And I can understand that from the Jewish perspective, the Jewish tradition. Mr. Jackson did explain himself, and that they understand, or as Christians, we all understand, and we have a deep and profound respect for Judaism, which he says here. But unfortunately, he wasn't thinking of that when he said that anyone who doesn't follow Jesus Christ. You see, that's what you said. And then you said they don't follow Jesus Christ, they're in a false religion. So it's really a lack of sensitivity that unfortunately Jackson got involved in when he said, uh, when he used that phrase, a false religion. We just say they're in other religion. Well, that's, of course, it's true. Without having to say false religion is not needed. The term religion itself, again, like I said before, is already false. It already implies falsehood. Now, if you want to believe that you are religious and that you are in a religion, that's up to you. I do not do that. I do not refer to myself as religious or as a person of religion. I don't. Um, and for the reasons I just expressed. And if anybody wants to do that, it would be those people who are in a religion and feel that they need to be in a religion. They need to say so. They need to say that. They need to say that they are religious, because that becomes their justification. It becomes their ID, if you will, and their characterization, which they need to affirm that they are, in actuality, realigning themselves with God and walking after their religious ideal. So, that you need to have that if you're going to be religious. But that has nothing to do with Christianity, because the ideal of Christianity is exactly the opposite. When Jesus Christ came and spoke and taught, he taught against the religious ideals of the time. It wasn't an issue of religion. It wasn't an issue of religion. He was against the religious establishment. And so, this is again unfortunate that nowadays the Christianity has become part of that religious establishment, which on the pulpits we call hypocrisy. We all talk about the same thing, but you're not defining it. You're not using the terms that are supposed to be used in the right way, because we are following what the secularists, the world, is opining about these terms. The world is not supposed to. Well, let's just say this: the world can do whatever it wants to do, but the church is not supposed to follow what the world determines. And we're not supposed to follow their definitions as they want to change it for their own purposes of words and terms, which gets you, Mr. Jackson, and other Christians into trouble. That's what they're trying to do. If you're going to follow their definition, then you got a problem, because now your Bible is always changing and transforming in its meaning and in its impact to your life and to others in society. So that's a dangerous thing. That's why the church cannot follow the secular definitions and terms. We need to stay with the biblical definitions and the biblical references to things, as opposed to adopting what the world has said and declared. Or we're not following the world. The world has to follow us. Okay, so we again, this issue of religion has to be clear for all Christians, that we are not in a religion. That's if you're not religious. Now, there are some Christians, there are some Christian sects and some Christian groups, denominations, if you will, that are very, very religious. That is an absolute. That I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about the Christian paradigm is, what the Christian teaching is not religious, and the act of following Christ, there's nothing religious in that. You see, the religiosity comes into play when we're following humanistic, even in religion, there's humanistic principles, because of our desire or a teaching that we must reconnect to God, that we must do certain things in order to please God, and in order to be in this holy state, or in this godly state. And that emphasis on our performance and our actions to define our Christianity or level of Christianity is what makes even Christians religious. So that is why the statement that the E.W. Jackson said is totally wrong. It's totally not even the Christian perspective, even though many Christians have it. But that is not the true Christian perspective. That is actually part of an error that is promulgated throughout Christianity, because of the uneasiness and unwillingness for Christianity to stand up on its own 2 feet and begin to lead the world instead of following the world's and the secularists lead. They do not lead the church. They are not on top of the church. And I speak for all the church, all of it, who call themselves after Christ. The world does not lead us. They have to follow us. We are on top of that, and you know that the scriptures say so. So we must not make these mistakes, because obviously it's embarrassing, isn't it? Now he says, "Look, I'm running for lieutenant governor. I'm not running to be theologian of Virginia." But then you again, you're crossing things, because you need. That's another thing that we need to talk about, is religion then, or religious figures, preachers, running for political office. You know, the church and state issue. And as an angel of the church, or a ward of the church, which is the pastor here, the preacher at least, he is also now trying to have a political office. And Jesus said that give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God what is God's. You see, so there is a clear separation, even in the declaration of Jesus Christ, between the church issues and things of polity, or of the social political environment, and that is something different, and that is something that's not Christian. That is something that the government does not need to be Christian. The government needs to be the government of the people, and so regardless of what the people's faith is, the government has to do what it has to do in order to protect the people, to provide for the people, to pursue the people's interests. That's their responsibility. Okay, so this is why, again, people need to ask the question, because there is confusion. There's not only confusion what religion is, but then there's confusion as what is a role of a Christian person in or even a religious person in the seat of government. Because you would assume, and everyone fears this, that a person comes into power, into a seat of power, and they begin to influence or to rule by their religiosity, which again, in itself, inherently, like I said before, is wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. And so, because many Christians don't have the clarity that I have expressed in this comment, there is need to fear. There's reason to fear, because there's no indication that there is an understanding that government, the seat of government, is one thing. It is on its own. It has its own set of rules. It has its own set of rules and prerogatives. And being a Christian, or a person of faith, of any faith, is a separate thing. Separate. And it's not to be exercised on the seat of government. It's not to be utilized and to use as a prejudice or bias against anyone, because I'm a Christian, and I don't agree with this, or I don't agree with that, and I'm going to rule against it because of what? Because of your religious views. You see, that's a problem, because of your religious views. And anyone who knows theology would understand that how is it that you're going to impose your theological views and use theological views to influence um, things of government, of state. So this is a I would run for office if my interests weren't in other places, because I know how to separate the two, and I think you guys can realize that I separate one thing from the other. and it keeps the playing field clear, because at least when you're dealing with me, you know that when it comes to governance, I'm going to govern for all the people. And when it comes to my preaching and my teaching, I'm going to do that on my time, what is my personal time, where I exercise my own influence in my own domain. That is where I will do my teaching and my preaching. Not, I would, crossing those two things is not to be done. Not to be done. And that gives you the strength to govern all the people, including those of different religions. You see? But they will respect you because you respect them. You respect their right to be. You respect their right to believe in the way they believe. It's not their fault they don't believe like you. Somebody needs to teach, right? Somebody needs to be doing the religious work, the Christian work, in order for them to come to a similar understanding as you have. But to sit in the seat of government and force upon the people my religious views, this is wrong. This is abusive. That's abuse. That is totally not appropriate. Okay, and then um, he says that he would separate his religious views, he says here, from the secular duties of a state official. All right, but what proof do we have so far? What proof is offered so far? Because so far, this is an issue, and he did not really give the clarity that he needed to, because he's still holding on to his religious terminology. That's what you needed to separate yourself from and not use. It was unfortunate. And then Jackson called the question unfair, noting that the Virginia Constitution guarantees freedom of expression. The government guarantees freedom of expression for its people. That's right. You see, but does not prove anything against the question. It proves that you're not understanding the right thing. The government can protect the rights of the people when it stays neutral, when it does not become biased in one area, or biased in one religion, or one religious view. That doesn't give the government the right to be religious. It doesn't give the government ever the right to espouse a certain religion. So you're using it in the exact way that proves what you're saying is incorrect and false. This is, you're not understanding. This shows your lack of understanding. That did not help your cause. This shows a lack of understanding that the Virginia Constitution guarantees freedom of religious expression. So you're saying that that guarantees your right to express yourself in the political arena religiously? That's not what that means. Okay, and again, when we're dealing with is your electorate's opinion and their willingness to vote for someone who does not seem to be able to draw the difference. And this statement here obviously clearly shows that you having, as well as other people, even some of your voters, do not understand this issue, this need to be separate and have integrity in that separation. I think it's a clear thing that you need to address. I'm sure Mr. Jackson is just not expressing the way he needs to express it, but he needs to separate very definitely his political views from his religious view. And I think that's what the secularists want to know and see and hear, because so far there's a cloudy area which is uncertain. It shows uncertainty of when you can be Christian in the governor's seat or in the lieutenant governor's seat, and when you cannot be or should not be in your own view. And right now we don't. It's not being seen. Right now you sit in that your seat, and they're going to see is a Christian sitting in that seat and doing things as a Christian. Um, which I'm not putting a negative aspect. I'm a Christian myself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, except that it's not what people and not what the government should be doing. It should be ruling fairly. That's it. Is there any problem with ruling fairly as a judge, as governing fairly for all people, as a governor or a lieutenant governor, a person in whatever seat of authority you have? Be fair, be righteous. The Bible has the word for this. You're going to be righteous. That's what you got to be using. Doing the things correctly in the right way. The right way. That's righteousness. So that's what you have to. It's not doing it in a Christian way, because that's talking now about religious, and then that brings in the wrong idea, the wrong concept. So all you have to do is that as lieutenant governor, I strive to do the best job for the constituents that have elected me, and for all the people really of Virginia. For even those who didn't elect me, you have to be fair and righteous for everyone. Don't be Christian. Be fair and righteous. Be true to God all the time. Have integrity all the time. You don't have to tolerate. You don't need the religion. Be true to God and true to yourself all the time, and be fair to all the people. That is what's needed in the seat of government. And then, of course, they go into the issue of prayer, because we have to ask every single question to this candidate. And then he says that I think this hypersensitivity. Ooh, people are hypersensitive, but yeah, he's going to get hypersensitive now with all these the questioning of his ability to rule without undue influence from his own religion. But this hypersensitivity to anything spiritual, to anyone that invokes God, is really not consistent with our history and our background. I say let prayer flourish. But if a Jewish rabbi wants to offer up a prayer, I'm not offended by that. Or if a Muslim wants to offer up prayer, I'm not offended by that. So in reality, there's no need for any offense or for any importance really to this whole matter of prayer. I believe in secular settings was the classification, which includes schools. The school prayer thing has been a big debate for a long time. So this is obviously, basically he's saying that there's no need to be whoever's, and the podium has the floor. That's the way I see it. You have the podium, then you have the floor. And it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or a Muslim or Hindu or whatever have you. You have the floor and you have the opportunity to invoke a prayer. That's a religious expression which the Constitution guarantees our right for religious expression. So we have the floor. Express yourself religiously. I mean, you have the floor. Is it appropriate? Are they gonna re-invite you again? Are you gonna whatever? That's up to you. You want to do it that way and take the suffer the consequences that may occur. But it's everyone's right to express themselves what they really believe. If you want to put your own personal um, persona or your career or your reputation out there in that way, then obviously that's something that's really up to you. It's not up to anyone else except yourself. So. Um, that's again is something of your own decision to do. But again, there's no restriction against that. Okay, and so basically that's the end of this article, and it's the end of my comments on that. I think more of that's on pilotonline.com. I think more of an importance for religious people. But forget about religious people. I want to talk about true Christians, true children of God. You really need to define yourselves and refer to yourselves in a more pure sense, and not follow the definitions and terminology of the secular world, because you're going into their area, and frankly, you're not you're not expert enough in the secular area to makes those corrections to your stance. In other words, to correct the error that's inherent in these issues, to correct the problems that come from a misstatement of terms, because the misstatement of terms, in this case religion, and it's a misuse by the secularists, and more so by the religious, by those who see themselves in a religion, is what's causing this whole problem. And it causes more problems than just this. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the public perception and what the machinations of secular society is doing, because they are. You have groups of people in different seats of power and influence that are um, crafting a societal um, posit, and they build this through ideologies that are referred to as atheism or as humanism, right? Humanistic approaches and philosophy, and is the religion that's being espoused from those seats of authority. So but if you are going to then fall into their trappings of modern usage of terms that have been biblical for ages, and now it has gone out of the Bible into the secular world for them to manipulate and change, and then we're going to try to raise a platform in the secular world in the plaza using that terminology, using their terminology, and then using it wrongly. See, because you're confused between your own understanding and beliefs with the terminology, with the understanding and belief of the secular society. This is where this puts the faith into a precarious perspective in the view of those who are observing, which is the population, which is the people. So we need to, as a people of faith, and I speak in particular to the Christian church, the evangelical church, in fact, that you need to adopt the biblical perspective and definition, most definitely, the definitions from the Bible, what the Bible defines as this being one thing or the other, whatever it is, in particular our faith, because our faith is not a religion. And the use now of religion and that word is unfortunate, even though it's in the Bible, it's in the King James Version at least, the taking care of remembering the orphan and the widow is the purest religion. Okay, but again, it's stated in the social context, right? Stated in the social context, taking care of widows, it's a social project, and taking care of orphans. This is a social concern. It's a social project. It has nothing to do with the individual, the internal relationship, with God and man. It is a socially observed action, and which was regarded and referred to even in the Bible as religion, because it's what people see. But it does not, again, it's what people see. But that is not the relationship itself with God. That is not it, but it is an observed result. So that's a religious expression. That's what is an expression, and that's where it should stay. But again, in the expression, as it says in another part of the Bible, where your works are dead, right? Works without faith are dead. So even that expression, if it's done out without the faith, which is the genuineness of being a son of God, in absence of that, then all those works are dead. And it is just religion. That's what it is. It's just religious expression. It's just a religion, and it's nothing more. Okay, so I hope that I was able to explain that. If anyone needs any more information, you can contact me. I'll be glad to give you more teaching of this or respond to any questions. Thank you very much for watching.